Recording here. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Eddie Chavez Calderon here, campaign director of Uri Litzedek. So excited to be here on a great day for some great Torah learning with the great Rabbi David Polsky, who is an educator, a kashrut professional living in Southfield with his wife and two girls. Before moving to Michigan in 2016, he served as the rabbi of Congregation Anshi and Sephard of New Orleans for 5 years. New Orleans is beautiful. We love all our friends from New Orleans. Rabbi Polsky received his shmincha from the Shiva University. Shout out to that university. He has published a series of articles making a Halakhic case for police accountability and the value of consent. Rabbi Polsky additionally serves as a scholar in residency for Congregation Beit Levitz and volunteers for many local Jewish organizations, including Detroit Jews for Justice, which are a great group of folks. Shout out Detroit Jews for Justice. And the Jewish Community Relations Council and Limud. Shout out to all those friends. He is also writing a Jewish mindfulness and wellness curriculum for elementary school teachers and kids kicking cancer. Make sure to follow his tweets at Motown Rabbi on Twitter, or now X, to make sure you keep in touch with some of his phenomenal work. So excited to have you, Rabbi.
Thank you very, very much, Eddie. Okay, so just some basic background about the situation that I'm just more familiar with. Again, I should just mention that I'm still learning about this issue. There are many people who are so much more familiar about just the Metzias, the reality that's on the ground than I am. And so I just did research about a few halachic sources. So I just keep in mind that I in no way claim to be an expert about water access in general. And I should just mention that, yeah, just all of my knowledge, even about the Detroit water situation, comes from Detroit Jews for Justice, and especially Barry Rubin, who's a volunteer for Detroit Jews for Justice, who's spent lots and lots of time on that issue. And so just about all my knowledge of the situation comes from him, though if I'm making any mistakes, it's my fault, not his. Also, just to make it quicker, just please excuse my Ashkenazis. It takes me a minute to try to translate in my brain. So just to make it go quicker, please excuse me. All right, okay. So just a little bit of background with regard to at least the Detroit water situation. Okay, so the Detroit main water system was created by the Detroit Water and Sewage Board, and so there's the main system, the main body of water and treatment, but from the main general pool, it gets delivered to all the various individual localities. So, for example, let's say I live in Southfield, which is one of the Detroit suburbs. So from the main body, it goes through a local delivery system to, let's say, to Southfield, or also to Detroit and all the other local areas. Now, so with regard to Detroit, as opposed to all the other localities within the metropolitan Detroit area, the issue is that the city of Detroit's local delivery system is very, very, very outdated. And so this infrastructure, or sort of like lack thereof, makes it much more inefficient for the water to deliver to residents of Detroit, and so for that reason, because it's so much more inefficient, it's like Detroit residents end up paying a lot more money per gallon of water used than, let's say, than I do. For example, someone who's living in the suburbs, and also part of this background is so because they have to spend more money for each gallon used, and so also the many Detroit residents are obviously who are lower on the socioeconomic scale. And so, which means that therefore, for any decent amount of water used, they are paying a very sizable proportion of their income in their water bills, because of those two factors. By the way, also, I just didn't get a chance to mention that again, there's all this technical information, and so even though we're taking questions at the end, but if there's something that I'm not explaining clearly enough, please put it in the chat, and either I'll notice or Eddie will notice, and we'll make sure that that it gets addressed. Okay, so as we were discussing, Detroit residents pay as much as even like 10% of their monthly income in their water bills, or possibly even more. And as you can probably imagine, because they have to spend so much of their income on their water bills, so some of them can't afford it. And so from, I think, about 2014 or so, if I remember correctly, to up until the pandemic, so there are many, actually could even be before that. I think actually either 2003 or is it 2014 again? Apologies if I'm incorrect, but either way, over the past decade or so, before the pandemic, many Detroit residents had their water shut off for their lack of ability to pay their water bills, which is unconscionable. There was with the pandemic, so there was a moratorium on the water shutoffs, but this pandemic, it officially ended in January. However, there is a program called Lifeline, which gives Detroit residents and others the ability, basically a hardship exemption that it doesn't cut off their water, and they could pay a lot less for their water bills, that it's capped at a certain amount of income. However, and there are people who are much more of experts on this issue than I am. Actually, I just want to acknowledge Rabbi Aryeh Bernstein, in addition to Rabbi Shmuley, et cetera. So, and Jose, so you're probably a whole lot more familiar with this end than I am. But with regard, so one of the issues with signing up for Lifeline is that, as Barry Rubin explained to me, poor people, like people in lower socioeconomic classes, they don't have the same networks that we do. In other words, we don't, like, let's say we might say, oh, I saw on the internet there's this program that hardship exemption for your water bill. If they can't even afford, let's say, Wi-Fi in their house, they don't have internet access, they're not going to find out about the same programs that in a way we would. So they don't have the same I guess information networks that, let's say, we might be used to. That's one thing. And then the other issue is, the other hang up is, even if they find out about the possibility of signing up for this program called Lifeline, but the problem is also that, let's say, in terms of the ability of documentation, let's say, for example, let's say the voter issue, where they say, oh, all you have to do is like show your photo ID. Well, for many people who, well, very conveniently, for some happen to be very often people of color. So they say many have trouble who access the proper documentation and time, et cetera, that's necessary in order to give the proper documentation in order to, let's say, get IDs, and let's say in this case, all the paperwork and time that's necessary to properly fill out the paperwork in order to get signed onto this program. And so these so for those two reasons, it's very, very difficult to get people to sign up. Okay, so there right now there's a moratorium right now there's a moratorium on shutoffs. However, at a certain point, this moratorium is going to end, and those Detroit residents who haven't signed up for the program are at risk of having their water shut off. Okay, so and just a little bit more, and then we'll be conclude the introduction. Okay, so now there's so a number of groups, including Detroit Jews for Justice, but really mainly led by the People's Water Board of Detroit, creating legislation that's going to be out hopefully soon. That will do a number of things, but among those things is as follows. First, absolutely preventing shutoffs, preventing water shutoffs, and then also there's going to be a certain amount of money that's going to be added to everyone's water bill, but that's going to create a fund that's basically going to enable all those with water systems throughout the state of Michigan to not have to pay more than 3% of their income on their water bill. So really, so the rest of this hour, I'm going to be focusing on the Halakhic angles of those two issues. First, the issue of about the income that people should not have to pay more than a certain amount of money on their for water bills. In other words, that people should pay for water according to what they can afford, rather than necessarily how much they use. And then also the idea of water shutoffs. Okay, so now we're going to finally get into the sources. So before we get into these two issues specifically, I just wanted to get to 2 or 3 sources that highlight how central water is for just the existence of a town. Okay, so I'll just summarize source 1. It just mentions about digging wells and how everything is necessary. So basically, there are certain things, let's say security services. This is for another discussion, but it's assumed by the Gemara that by the Talmud and Bava Batra that Talmud scholars don't have to pay for security because the Torah protects them. However, it says in source 1 that even Torah scholars and even orphans have to pay for, let's say, the digging of wells, because water is so central to existence. But also, even if, let's say, a Torah scholar might not need help for security because their Torah protects them, however, they have to drink. They have to be able to bathe, and therefore they have to help out as well. Now, in source 1, it just mentions that they don't have to dig themselves, but they do have to pay. How much everyone has to contribute, that we're going to get to soon. Okay, and then second, okay, then source 2, if you scroll down, Eddie. Also, by the way, I assume Eddie, you make the source sheet available to everyone who wants to be able to follow, wants access to it. So thanks. Okay, so in source 2, this is taken from a Tosefta in Bava Metzia at the end of Bava Metzia. So it talks about someone who is resident of a town, and at what point do they become responsible for all of the obligations of the town, etc. And so one of those things. So this is a case. Actually, I'll just read it because it's relatively short. It says, if someone has a courtyard in another city, the people of the city can still force them to help dig wells, ditches, and caves, and to help them repair the ritual baths and water streams. But they cannot compel them regarding other things. So if they lived in that city, they can compel them regarding all of the charges. Okay, let me explain what that means. Let's say someone buys a house in a particular neighborhood, but they're not living there. Let's say they're renting it out or something of that nature, but they're not actually living there. So for other charges, like let's say security or other things, because they're not actually a real full member of that town, they don't have to pay for other things. However, what this Tosefta is saying is that if someone buys a house, even if they're not actually living in that particular town, they still have to pay for the cost of creating and maintaining the water system. And so this, next Tosefta Kivshuta, we're going to scroll down to source 3. I'll just read what's underlined. Okay, so in terms of the explanation, why should someone specifically have to pay for water even if they're not living there? So Tosefta Kivshuta quotes Rabbi Yosef Ibn Migash that without these ditches and caves for water, no one would be able to live in the city, and it would become desolate. In other words, because water access is so central to the life of a town, it just wouldn't exist. So even if the person isn't living there, they still have an obligation towards the rest of the town with regard to water access. And then could you scroll down to the next, the top of the next page? Okay. Oh, actually, no, I'll scroll up towards, it's the other underlined source. Thank you. So sites, I think it was like I think it was the Ron, if I remember correctly. Yeah, I believe it's the Ron who Tosefta Kivshuta cites that aside from that angle, also, even if a person doesn't actually live in that town, but they just have a house there, or they're renting it out, or they're just doing business there, it says, in other words, we only make them liable for things that are beneficial to living there. Since there are wells, ditches, and caves, people will come to live there, and the owner can rent the house or sell it for more money should they decide to sell. In other words, that just even if you have a house there, even if you're not living there, you still benefit from the town having water access. Because even if, let's say, I'm not living in the town, but I have a house there, my house is more valuable if the town itself has water. Because if no one has water, no one's going to want to live in my town, in the town that my house is in, and therefore I won't be able to sell or rent that house for as much money because less people are going to want to live there. And so that being the case, even if someone doesn't actually live in that city, they still have an obligation to contribute towards the water system, even if they have just a business interest there, because they benefit as well from the town in general having access to water. Okay, so that's just the basic background with regard to general water access. Okay, so now we get into the issue of payment. So we get to source 4. Okay, so with regard to towards these dafim in Bava Basra, there's a discussion about about the needs of the community and what you have to contribute for, etc. But there's no direct mention in the Gemara, with this exception, of how do you assess the payments? How do you assess the money? Do you go based, does everyone pay equally, or does everyone pay based on wealth, or some other way to assess it? The only time it's discussed in the actual Gemara is in source 4 in Bava Basra, and that is specifically in the context of building some sort of like security wall that's meant to keep out real bandits, not the made up ones that a certain Menuval has sought to build. Something based on real purposes. So the Jewish community, they're trying to create a wall to keep out bandits, and so And the question is, in this passage in Baba Basra, source 4, how do you assess it? So we have a few possibilities. I guess I'll just read it quickly. With regard to this issue, Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yochanan, when the residents of the city collect money to build a wall, do they collect based on the number of people living in each house? In other words, if there's 5 people in each house, versus 3 people in the other house, so the people with 5 in that household contribute more, even if they might have less money than the 3-person house. Or perhaps they collect based on the net worth of each person, in other words, the wealth. In which case, let's say if the 5-person house has less money, they would contribute less than even if there's less people in the richer household. Okay, and then according to this possibility, Rabbi Yochanan said to him, they collect based on the net worth of each person. And Elazar, my son, you shall fix nails in this. This is an established halacha, and you must not veer from it. Okay, but then there's another version. It says, there are those who say that Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yochanan, when they collect money to build a wall, do they collect based on the proximity of the houses to the wall? Because the assumption is, so in other words, if the closer my house is, let's say, would be to the wall, let's say the more I would be benefiting from that wall. And so let's say versus someone who's further away and is less in need of protection, because the issue is the closer my house is to the wall, because let's say the bandits, if the wall weren't there, so then the bandits would get to me first before the person who lives further in. Okay, so those who say that to Rabbi Elazar asked Rabbi Yochanan, when they collect money to build a wall, do they collect based on the proximity of the houses to the wall, so that those people who live closer to the wall pay more? Or perhaps they collect based on the net worth of each person? Rabbi Yochanan said to him, they collect based on the proximity of the houses to the wall. And Elazar, my son, you shall fix nails on this. In other words, this is the halacha. Okay, so we have these 2 versions, but notice again, this discussion is specifically about security, and there's no such discussion with regard to any other communal services. The Rishonim have a major debate with regard to, who exactly do we follow? So some seem to say that we primarily, we're going to see within the Tur, and I don't remember offhand if this is echoed in the Shulchan Aruch, but at least the Tur says it's some combination. First, it's primarily based on income, on wealth, and then after that, it's also assessed based on proximity to the wall. In other words, that even if 2 people have the same amount of income, so then the person who lives a little bit closer to the wall has to pay a little bit extra. Okay, but if I remember correctly, I think there are some who follow the opinion that it's based on a number of people in the household. Okay, but either way. Okay, so we have this discussion about, but it's only with regard to security. Now the other factor is, okay, so let's could you scroll down to source 5? Thank you. Okay, so Tosfos and I think just about all the Rishonim seem to pick on this assumption. Tosfos says that they collect according to the wealth of each individual. Since there is no life-threatening danger, we do not assess according to wealth. In other words, since there's no life-threatening, yeah. Well, actually, no. I think I borrow this translation from I think Sefaria, but I think this is could have been translated. So basically, in other words, if there is no life, if there,
I think it's the opposite, David.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's the opposite, because the translation skips the word Ella in the Tosfot.
Exactly. Yeah, in other words, it's specifically
Ella Batamamon.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I should have taken a look more carefully at the translation. I guess teaches you lessons always. well, you can't necessarily always just cut and paste from Safari. So yes, so because in other words, because there is no life-threatening danger. Thank you. So therefore, it's specifically according to wealth. In other words, the assumption in the Rishonim is basically echo that the method of payment or the assessment follows based on the risk. In other words, if the primary concern is danger to people's lives, that what are the bandits going to do? They're going to chas v'shalom, God forbid, kill all the people in the town or many of them. So in other words, there's a risk to life, right? And everyone's life is equal. So therefore, the assumption is if that's the primary risk, so therefore everyone should pay equally. And Tosfos is saying is that according to the opinion that they collect according to wealth, it's because there is no life-threatening danger, or at least in other words, since the primary risk is that they're going the bandits are going to steal things, they're going to take things from other people. In other words, that the primary danger is monetary and not life-threatening. So therefore, it should go according to wealth. And Tosfos cites another Gemara in Bava Kama that reflects this idea. But all the Rishonim seem, or at least just about all the Rishonim that I've seen, seem to take it for granted that at least with regard to security, it goes based on like what we're assessing for. In other words, that again, if we're preventing against danger to money, so then the assessment should be based on wealth. But if the concern is for life, so then everyone pays equally. Okay. So now with that background, the issue is, okay, there's no direct discussion in the Gemara of, okay, what about communal services, like with regard to water, building a shul or other things, and so for that has to be filled in. Okay, so first I want to take a look at the tour, which is source 6, right? So okay, so the tour doesn't really say directly, but I'm going to at least based on my explanation to, but really got the idea from Tzemach Tzedek, who we're going to be studying, who we're going to be seeing in a moment. By the way, Tzemach Tzedek is Rabbi Menachem ben Avram Krachmal. Not, I think we tend to assume that Tzemach Tzedek is Chabad. That's a Chabad Rebbe who was authored a sefer called Tzemach Tzedek. But this is before Hasidus. I think, if I remember correctly, Rabbi Krachmal lived in I think the 1600s or 1700s, if I remember correctly. But anyway, so that's Tzemach Tzedek. Okay. So the tour in source 6. So it mentions about if they live in the city, they are like the other people in the city. Anyone who lives there for 12 months or buys a home, they are like the other people of the town for those purposes. Then afterwards, it says, when we collect, we do so according to wealth and not according to the number of people. And then he says, after dividing the collection according to wealth, we also see which house is closer to the wall, and such a house pays more. And then houso says if there's 2 houses, etc. And so through most of that section, through most of the rest of that section, the tour is discussing all the details with regard to these security payments in terms of who's obligated and all that. Gets into the Torah scholar, etc. Okay, and then at the very, very end, okay, can you scroll down, Eddie? Okay, so then he says, finally, with regard to the other needs of the city, like digging wells and repairing roads, it just mentions the scholar is obligated to pay for them, etc. So he doesn't not directly mention the payment. All he does is just mention just the obligation, for example, of the Torah scholar or the orphan to pay for them, and then like shortly after is the end of that simon, the end of that general section within the tour. Okay, So the way the Tzemach Tzedek reads it, and I think is also pretty implicit, is that actually, could you scroll back up a little bit, Eddie? I think. So basically, what I think is happening is that this line of when we collect, etc., we do so according to wealth. So this statement is being applied not only to security, but also to all the other payments of the town. In other words, so even though the primary source of the statement when we collect, etc., was taken from the Gemara with regard to the security wall. However, I think that the Torah is applying this phrase to payments in general. And I think, as Tzemach Tzedek knows, so he says primarily according to wealth, and the Torah says afterwards, afterwards whoever is lives closest to the wall. All right, but this issue of payment based on who lives closest to the wall, that's specifically with regard to the issue of security. However, as Tzemach Tzedek reads it, but with regard to other community services, like let's say the water or building a shul, etc., but especially with regard to the water, obviously that living closer to the wall isn't in terms of bandits isn't an issue. So therefore, what we're left with is that water needs should be determined based on wealth and not based on anything else. Because again, the issue of living closest, that's limited to the issue of the security wall. But with regard to all other needs, it should apply based on wealth, because again, because the Torah never modifies that. So I think, and the Tzemach Tzedek reads it as wealth is the determining factor for the other needs of the town as well. And not just security, and again, and also it's completely determined based on wealth, not based on anything else. That might be a little unclear, so just please put in the chat if that wasn't 100% clear. But otherwise, all right, so hopefully we got that. Again, this is a little bit technical and literary, so thank you for following along. Okay, so with that background in the Torah, so now we get to Tzemach Tzedek. So could you scroll down? Oh, let me see. Okay. So so Ari, so just so I see you have some questions. So I'll try to get to those at the end. So so I'll get to those, but in terms of immediately, I just want to make sure everyone gets the shot. But yeah, afterwards I'll get to those questions. So thank you. But the short answer is yes. Actually, there's I didn't put it in, but there's actually another tshuva as well with I think 19, where he also has that inclination of determining things based on wealth. So the Tzemach Tzedek also has basically that reading of the Torah. So therefore, he says that everything should be based on wealth. So then, I don't have this as a translation. In the middle, so he gets to this issue of actually, let me just mention one other piece of background. So there, with regard to other community needs, so there was one tshuva that Rabbi Yosef Rosen responded to with regard to hiring a chazan. So he was asked, okay, how do you assess the payment for the community members to pay for a chazan? And he says, okay, because prayer is patterned after is patterned after the sacrifices, which was taken from the half shekel offering. And therefore, because it was, and so everyone paid the same amount, and therefore it should go based on wealth. However, so it should be based, it should all be equal, just like the machatzis shekel in the temple, which paid for all of the community sacrifices. However, there's other components of the chazan's job, like singing, etc., which is not as essential to prayer, and so therefore there's a component of wealth as well. So therefore he says it should be half equal, and then half of it should be assessed according to wealth. So Rabbi Tzemach Tzedek, Rabbi Krachmal says, okay, that reasoning only was special to prayer, to prayer specifically. However, he says, okay, but that's nothing to say with regard to other community needs like water. Oh, okay, sorry, I just realized I forgot to give the background of the tshuva itself. Sorry about that. Okay, so the background of the tshuva is as follows. Okay, so he gets a question from the community. The community is so the Jewish community beforehand, they had to go in. They were living on the outside of a town, outside of a town's walls, and they didn't have any water that got delivered to them. They had to go travel inside the town in order to get water and then bring it back out. Okay, so then there is a way to all they had to do is pay for some delivery system to be installed, and so those pipes would enable that town to deliver water much closer to that town, but they still have to pay for that delivery system. And so the question was posed to Rabbi Krachmal. Okay, so how do we assess it? Do we assess it? Does everyone have to pay equally, or do they have to pay based on wealth? So we have an explicit question to him of how do you pay? Do you pay equally, or do you pay based on wealth? So he mentions this idea of Rav Hai Gaon. He says, oh, that's specific to prayer. But he says primarily it should all be based on wealth, just like this reading of the Torah that we just discussed. And so therefore, it's, the paying for the water system should be based on wealth. Now, he does respond to someone who tries to say, but with regard to, let's say, with regard to danger, and if everyone is in danger, so therefore everyone, if people's lives are threatened, so we saw from the Gemara that everyone should pay equally, and if you don't have water, so then people could chas v'shalom die, and so therefore, why don't you say that everyone should have to pay for the water equally, because it's an issue of life and death. So he says, if I think the im lachshach Adam Lamar says, if a person tries to make this argument, so then Tzemach Tzedek says, no, this argument still doesn't make sense, because in this particular case they have water, but it's just difficult to get, and installing these pipes, improving the delivery system will make it easier. And so actually, you might see in Rabbi Aaron Levine, I think I think the book is called Free Enterprise and Halacha. So he takes that second answer for granted, and he says, oh, so therefore there is a distinction between if there's community necessity, things that are absolutely necessary should be equal versus things that aren't as necessary, which should be based on wealth. However, if you take a look in the original tshuva, so he introduces this question with lachshach Adam Lomar, that if a person should whisper you to try to say, basically this means someone tries to make a false assumption, and then therefore I'm going to make this answer. However, I think the basic reading of that tshuva is that primarily Tzemach Tzedek is arguing that we should that water costs should be based on wealth rather than anything else. And so therefore, so this tshuva definitely seems to suggest that that water cost should be based on wealth rather than anything else. Now, I just want to respond to one possible issue with regard to applying this to modern water day systems, because let's say back before for modern times, you just had to create the water system, and then you didn't have to pay for the water itself per usage. But nowadays we have water treatment systems, and so therefore, let's say the more water we use, the more that has to be treated, and therefore the more expensive it is to the system, and so therefore. Someone could argue that this doesn't apply nowadays because, or at least as much, because in addition to the cost of creating the water system, we should also charge people per usage. So I would make two arguments in response to such an response. So one would be that I think that you could say that even treatment is part and parcel of the entire water system as a whole. That you don't just like set up the water system, but you're also setting up the means of treatment, and so therefore even the treatment as well should be considered part of the structure. And so therefore that should not add to people's water bills and should still be based on wealth. And the other thing I would just say is based on the sources that we said at the very beginning, the government has an obligation towards its people to make sure that everyone has water. So from that perspective as well, I think that it should be based on it should all be based on wealth rather than per gallon usage. Anyway, so I believe that these arguments, that these sources and more would suggest that that paying for water should be based on wealth rather than based on usage, as opposed to at least the current state as that people paying per usage in their water bills, and people having to spend so much money on their water bills. Okay, so now we come to the issue of shutoffs. Okay, so part of the okay, so can you scroll down to source 8? Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to summarize this. This is taken from the Gemara in Nedarim. It assumes that let's say one town, let's say town A has water, and then town B does not have water. So it's taken for granted, chayacha kodmin, that okay, two people stranded in the desert. So the assumption is, okay, you don't have to give over your water bottle to save someone else and you die. Rather, you're allowed to save your own life first. Okay, and so for a similar assumption is that, okay, the town with the water, they need the water, so therefore they are allowed to keep their water like for their own individual needs first. However, once they have taken care of those, right? Once they have taken care of their own needs for, let's say, drinking, there is a debate within this Gemara in Nedarim about, okay, what about the needs of, let's say, the town's animals? Does that come before the drinking needs of the other town? So that's a matter. And then what about the laundry needs? And what about bathing needs? Does that come before? Okay, but be that as it may, it's assumed that, okay, town A, the town with the water, they're allowed to drink it first, and then their other water, they are obligated to give it to the other town. Okay, and this idea is echoed in source 9, which is actually, in fact, the Gemara is probably taken from source 9. Could you scroll down a little bit, Eddie? Okay, thanks. Okay, so this is Tosefta at the very end of Tosefta Baba Metzia. So it says, a stream owned by a particular town, if both that town and others need it for drinking water, they come before the others. Again, as we said, town A, their own needs come first, and then the remaining water they give to town B, the town without water. Okay, and then there is a line that's a little bit ambiguous. It says, well, in Hebrew it says v'chulan olin l'cheshbon b'achrona. Literally, they come together to calculate after their usage. Okay, so what does that mean? So there are two general explanations given by the commentaries. Tosefta Kipshuta, Rabbi Lieberman cites that of Tosfos Bikurim, who says that, okay, what does that mean by they come together to calculate afterwards? It's talking about payment. In other words, according to this explanation, okay, so town A has the water. They give their water to town B, the town that doesn't have the water, right? And then town B uses the water, right? Whatever water they need, and then afterwards they pay town A for the water, the amount of water that they used. However, there's a very, very important line. Could you scroll down a little bit more, Eddie? Okay, for this English. Okay, thank you. Okay, so it says they calculate the cost of water afterwards. So this is a very, very important formulation. This means that even though the city with the water is obligated to supply the other cities with water, these other cities are nonetheless obligated to pay for the water they use. On this, the Tosfos Bikurim adds, after the other city has used what they need, after they use what they need, so they calculate the value and pay, though not before, because water is absolutely essential for life. So in other words, that the first town B, they use whatever water they need, and then and only afterwards do they have to pay for it. Because why? Because water is so central, so important for life. You can't live without it. You can't say, "Oh, okay, go ahead. First pay the money, and then we'll handle it, and then we'll give you the water." No, we can't do that. We have to first let people have let people have the water, and only worry about payment later on. Okay. So with regard to that issue, so obviously, I think needless to say, I think that this should apply to the issue of water shutoffs, because again, water is so central, we can't just expect payment first. Now, I did want to respond to one potential issue that someone could possibly raise, because let's say in the case of, let's say, Detroit, and not let's say other potential shutoffs, right? Let's say the residents, they get the water and they're using it, and just that they are delinquent on their payments. And so you could say that they got their water already, and they got to use it, and they're not paying up. So it's just saying, okay, because after a while, we're not giving them more water because they already got to use the other water before paying for it. So I would make two arguments. That first, I think just the principle still stands that water is so central to people's to life that I think that this principle still stands, that irrespective of the specific circumstances of delinquent water bills, okay, even if they got some water first, but still we have to still continue to give them water before allow people access to water, irrespective and before any questions about payment. That's one thing. And then also, I think, as I mentioned before, just the idea that okay, so what's the case over here about the two towns? It's that one town, right, has the water. Let's say town A, they have the water, and they are responsible primarily for their own citizens. And then we have town B that doesn't have the water, that because town A is not as primarily responsible for town B's need for water as they are for their own residents, so therefore they have priority. So because we're talking about basically it's the own city, its own state. So because the government has this responsibility towards its own residents, so I would argue that that it should also be applied here, that their water should absolutely not be shut off because of such of an obligation towards its own residents to not be denied access to water. Okay. So that's one explanation of the Tosefta. Okay, so now Eddie, can you scroll down? Okay, so now we come to Mitzvah Shmuel, who discusses. Actually, can you scroll down to source 12, I believe? Okay, yeah. So this is by Rabbi Yitzchak Shwedron, which is She'arei Mincha and the Tosefta B'Metzia. So he cites Chastei David, which is the other explanation. Okay, so what does it mean that you calculate everything afterwards, right? That first you calculate everything later on. So what does it mean? He says, explains that the town that owns the stream has used all of the water that they need according to their calculation. In other words, let's say they need, let's say town A, the town with the water. They figure out how many gallons, let's say 1,000 gallons for a month. Really, it's going to be more than that, but okay, just for these purposes, 1,000 gallons. All right, this is how much we need, and then okay, we have this amount of water left over, and we can give, let's say, town B the remaining water that we have as much as they need. In other words, first they assess how much water we need. That's the calculation, how much water we need. And then they give the rest to everyone else. And he says that that owns the stream has used all of the water they need according to their calculation. They are obligated to then allow others as much as they can. This is because we use legal force to prevent people from acting like the people of Sodom, who are extremely selfish. Since this one, the town with the water does not lose, and this one, the people from other towns benefit. Okay, so let me explain the context. So many people here are, I think probably all, I assume most, if not all of us are familiar with this idea that the real sin of the people of Sodom, it wasn't that a particular sex act. That wasn't their primary sin. Rather, it was their legislation against helping the poor and being against the needs of others who are marginalized, against refugees, etc. That was their primary sin. Okay, and so this idea is picked up and is actually given legal force in the Gemara. In Hebrew, it's kofin al midas Sodom. In other words, we even use legal force against someone who is acting as a, well, quote unquote, well, sodomite, at least according to the definition of the rabbis. We use legal force against that person who is trying to press their property rights as much as possible, even if it hurts others. Okay, and I think many Rishonim, including Rashi, apply it to the following situation. It's in Hebrew, it's called Ze nehene v'ze lo chaser. This person benefits and the other person doesn't lose. All right, so what does that mean? Let's say the classic case in the Gemara in Bava Kama is let's say I have a yard that I don't rent out to anyone else. I'm not using it, and so someone decides to just go ahead and squat on that land. So that person gains from the fact that they don't have to pay rent. And I wouldn't have done anything with that plot of land anyway. And so therefore I wasn't going to rent it out. So therefore I'm not losing anything. And so the idea of kofin al midas Sodom is don't be a sodomite. Let that person enjoy something using your property as long as you're not losing. Okay. And so according to Chastei David, this is the principle that we're applying to water access, that we say kofin al midas Sodom, that town A, you've used the water that you need, and so don't be sodomites. Don't act like the people of Sodom. Give whatever else you need to that other town. So according to Chastei David, he doesn't mention anything about payment. And so therefore, at least in his explanation, since the calculation is for water usage and not for payment, So it seems to be suggesting that the Talmud doesn't even have an obligation to pay for it. Okay, now I'm not going. So there are some discussions about the application of Kofin al Midas Dome. I don't, since we're running out of time. I guess I'll have to. To discuss it offline, and also I'm writing an article about. I have an article that I'm writing on it. I hope to publish, so you'll see that in greater detail. Okay, so now I want to get to the following issue is that of water rights and paying for it. Okay, so let's turn to source. Let me see which source number. It's this Baba Kama. Yeah, here we go. Thank you. Yeah, source 13. So the sages taught Joshua stipulated 10 conditions when he apportioned the land of Israel according among the tribes, and it's very ambiguous what exactly it means, but that a spring, though private, may be used by the people of the town, even if it first emerged after the division of the land. It's not really. There's a whole major dispute among the commentators about what exactly this phrase means. But it means that basically some sort of spring, it's going within the town. At the very least, it means that that everyone in the town itself, even if let's say the stream is going through private property, everyone within the town can make use of this stream. Okay, and also I should just mention that even though this is a stipulation that was originally made by Yehoshua when he was dividing up Eretz Israel. But I think it's acknowledged by everyone that based on another passage in Gemara that this rule applies not only to Eretz Israel but even outside of Eretz Israel as well, all over the world. Okay, so let's turn to source 14, right? Okay, so with regard to whatever this principle is, right, that says that the people of the city should have a right to take supplies of the water, even if it's on private property, etc. And so it says Rabbi Bar Rav Huna says that even though someone can draw water from that spring, but he has to pay money to reimburse them. But then the halacha says the halacha is not in accordance with this opinion. In other words, that whatever is applicable can take the water without having to pay for it. Okay, so since we only have a few minutes left, I just want to mention this very, very fascinating idea from the Rogotchover Gaon based on this Gemara and others. So this you could find. I think you scroll down. I think it's source. I think 17, 18, or something like that. If I remember correctly, basically, according to the Rogotchover, and this I had to put later on actually. So scroll down to 19. Okay, so this is the one thing he cites is another Tosefta which says that rivers and springs that flow belong to all people. There's no particular owner of any flowing spring. Okay. So it is possible, let's say someone digs their own well on their own property, that's an exception, and if the water is specifically contained within it. But otherwise, all flowing water belongs to every single person. And you can't really say that one particular person or even one particular community is the real owner over the body of water. But so what is, okay, however, okay, so what does it mean by ownership? So he explains that, let's say if it talks about a case in the shutoffs that let's say a community dug and created a water system, in a certain sense they are sort of the owners. However, even with this degree of ownership, so the Rogotchover applies that statement in the Gemara Bava Kama about not having to pay for it. He applies it to this case that even if the community, they dug their own water system, they created it, but they still have an obligation to provide it to others in need, even without payment. Because certainly because you can't really own water, he explains elsewhere that because water is flowing, it's basically difficult. You can't really acquire it. You can't really own it in that sense. the possible exception is if you dig a well on your own private property. So, but otherwise you can't really acquire water because it's flowing. You can't really unless you pick up in a cup, that's something else. But still, because the water is flowing, you can't really acquire it. And because you can't acquire it, so therefore you're not really the owner of that water. So he says, the only decree, what does it mean when Yehoshua made those stipulations? It means as follows, that a community with the water system, they have the primary rights, just like that other Tosefta that we studied, the community with the water, that goes through them, they have the primary rights over that water. In other words, they're allowed to make use of that water for their own needs before they give it to other communities. However, after they've taken care of their own needs, they still have an obligation to provide it to other communities, even without charge. And even if they've dug their water system, he says that they still don't have to pay for it, because he says that that delivering water is really, because water, everyone is the true owner of water, because no one can really say that they're the owner of water, with those exceptions of a well dug in my own individual property. But otherwise, you can't really say that I'm the real owner, because even if you are the owner by having created this water system for that town, it still only creates more obligations to give to other communities, even without expecting payment, because again, water access is, I think his assumption is, though he doesn't say it outright, I think it's because water is so fundamental to human life. We can't really say that you can only access it if you can pay for it, because water is so essential to how we function. It's not something that could really be bought and sold, and should be subject to ability to pay for it. Okay, so that's the main idea. Is it okay if I just mention one other idea, and I got it even though we're a minute or two over? Okay, so just also in terms of, I just want to mention so I was discussing a halachic argument, but I just want to mention in terms of some non-halachic arguments. If you take a look towards the end of the source sheet, I'm just going to summarize it. We know from the case of Rivka, Rebecca, that the reason why she is chosen as the proper wife for Yitzchak is because she goes up to the stranger and says, "Can I help fill your water?" And then before Moshe Rabbeinu is chosen as to lead the people out of Mitzrayim, out of Egypt. So one of the things he does, he says that Tzipporah and her sisters, they're trying to fill their water, and other people are chasing them away. And Moshe Rabbeinu, he defends them, and he enables them to draw water. Right. So we have two cases among many others in which what's the true sign of righteousness? Why are they chosen for those important roles? Why is Rivka chosen to marry Yitzchak? Why is Moshe chosen to lead the people out of Mitzrayim? Because they are helping the marginalized people. The stranger, the poor, they are enabling those people to access water, right? So enabling water access is a sign of righteousness. That's a sign of Jewishness. And as opposed to others, you'll see also within the source sheet, as opposed to, I think, Ammon and Moab, that they wouldn't give water to Bnei Israel coming out of Egypt. And there's also in the source sheet, you'll see later on, I think it mentions the Netziv, that they were willing to charge Bnei Israel for it, but they're still they're willing to charge for it, but the fact that they wouldn't give it to the water to them for free, so that's what makes those people to be so odious. And so we see that, that water access, enabling the poor and marginalized to access water, that is a sign of Jewishness and righteousness. So we should be on the side of enabling water access rather than keeping it away based on ability to pay. And then also just also to conclude that in a month and a half, Mirat Hashem will celebrate the festival of Sukkot, and on Sukkot we're judged according to we're judged based on judged for rain. We're judged for water access, right? That's what the Mishnah in Rosh Hashanah says, that the whole world is judged for water. And so for us to be judged favorably for water, I think that it behooves us to enable the poor and marginalized, for as many people as possible, to have access to water, and that if we do so then Mirat Hashem, may it be Hashem's will, that we all of us have proper access to water as well. So thank you very much for bearing with me and being such a great crowd. So now I'm going to respond to questions, and again, feel free to log off if you choose, but I'm happy to stay on as long as you will. Okay, let me see. Okay, so I see Rabbi Bernstein. So you mentioned some people I was in yeshiva with could have used a reminder that Torah scholars. Okay. Oh, by the way, I will say, actually, speaking of bathing, I didn't get a chance to mention this earlier, that with regard to access to water, it's not even just drinking. Shutting off people's water and also prevents them from bathing, and lack of bathing is seen as an affliction, because it's one of the ways we afflict ourselves on Yom Kippur. Also, there's a famous midrash. Also, I think I have this at the end of the source sheet with regard to Hillel. There's a story about Hillel that says that I'm going to go do a mitzvah, and his students ask him, "Wait, what mitzvah are you going to do?" "I'm going to bathe myself." "Wait, but why is that a mitzvah?" Because he says, because I was created b'tselem Elokim, I was created in Hashem's image, and so I am respecting this image by bathing myself. So basically, this so ability to bathe is a basic matter of dignity to human beings, and also to Hashem, also, as it were. And that being the case, like just the fact that preventing people from being able to bathe, that's also something that's abominable. Okay. So thank you for that reminder. Okay, so now we just mentioned, okay, I'm just curious if the Tzemach Tzedek, student of the Bach, is a broad progressive economic justice lens. He also elsewhere famously encourages Jewish communities to ban eating fish for Shabbos when fish sellers had been price gouging. So I just never mentioned this offhand. I didn't get a chance to read all of Tshuva 19. So what I did was 34, but I think in Tshuva 19, he also has something that reflects this principle that people should pay for things according to wealth rather than other factors. So yes, I definitely, certainly from reading that tshuva, I certainly got that impression that was his inclination, that he had such a desire to be able to say to make it based on affordability. I didn't get a chance to mention this before, but actually it's funny that that towards the end of that tshuva, I think you'll see it actually within the source sheet itself, that he says, "Oh, I'll tell you what. There was one exception to this idea of paying for the water system based on wealth, because you could say that in order that the water system doesn't only enable drinking and bathing, but also enables the people to put out fires if chas v'shalom there's a fire. All right, and it's going to burn people's houses down. Okay, but then, all right." But because you're going, and because if someone loses their house, they're losing something that's valuable. So therefore, you should also maybe so 3/4 of the money should be based on wealth, and 1/4 should be based on property values. However, as you can imagine, he notes the wealthier you are, the more expensive house you're going to be able to afford. So it's not really going to make that much of a difference anyway, because those who are have more money, they're going to have the more expensive houses, and even the quarter of the value of paying for the system that's going to be based on that's going to be based on house values. That's also really going to end up being based on wealth as well. So I definitely got the impression throughout reading that tshuva, also this same inclination at wanting to make community services based on ability to afford it, just based on all those arguments he was trying to make against using Rav Gaon and others, and reading the Torah also in a similar way to say that reading the sources in order to say that we should be based on wealth rather than anything else. So I definitely agree with you, Rabbi Bernstein, that there is such an inclination that I detected as well within that tshuva and elsewhere. Okay, any other questions? Either raise your hand or in the chat.
Eddie, you'll share the source sheet with everyone who registered?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
Thanks.
I'll make sure to share that. Thank you so much, Rabbi Polsky. Phenomenal Torah to start the day, and I think it's even more phenomenal that Uri Tzedek is out actually providing water with a lot of the folks who are experiencing extreme heat right now in Phoenix, Arizona, and we're also bringing in our mobile showers so that folks are able to take showers who are experiencing homelessness. So I think this Torah really grounds us.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically, yeah. So you're acting based like Moshe Rabbeinu and Rivka. So yes. So I assume, by the way, you might want to put in a link. Is there like a specific thing for that water? Is there like a fund for that specifically, or just Uri Tzedek in general?
Uri Tzedek in general, yeah.
Okay. As far as I'm concerned, I might put in a donation.
Thank you. You're a blessing. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We appreciate
thank you again for your time and interest, and look forward to learning with you again in the future.
Take care, everybody. See ya.